Howdy, this is SmerrillS, and this is my review of the Tomee NES controller. Why would you buy one of these, might you ask? And I'll tell you, in case you have a Nintendo controller that decided to pop out on you, or you have a clone controller and you're not exactly right, you don't exactly like the feel of your clone console's controller, this would be what you would buy. Now, I know I already did a review of a NES clone controller. That was the TTX Tech NES Classic controller, and I do have to say that I much more prefer the Tomee over the TTX Tech, and here's why. The TTX Tech, the controller just really kind of frayed around here. The buttons all decided they were going to stop working, and all in all, the quality was just crap. I made the mistake of only reviewing it after I've had it just about a week instead of a couple of weeks. This one I waited for about a month afterwards, and I have to say I am much better glad that I did. So I had a few days and a couple of months to run this thing through its paces. Now, in the box, nothing much really came out of it except for a bag. The box is much bigger than the TTX Tech one. It's actually almost the same size as the one for the SNES USB controller that I reviewed. And I do have to say that the quality of the box is just about the same. There was nothing in there except for the bag and this controller. Computer. This doesn't work on the computer. So, without further ado, let's get rid of the box. On to the controller. The controller itself, the first thing I want to get off the bat is the casing. The casing looks and feels cheap. It's got that cheap plastic, feel, smoothness to it. I didn't like it at first. I thought I was going to be in another deal with the same as the TTX Tech that I had. I was very pleasantly surprised though. The casing doesn't bend like in the TTX Tech, and it actually feels solid. The buttons are all very nice and responsive. They work great in-game, and if you're just pressing on them, just getting the feel for them, it feels perfectly fine. Size is just the same as a regular Nintendo controller. It's actually more of a direct port than the TTX Tech controller. Now, a couple of niggly things about this. The start and select buttons do sit up a little high. I didn't like that as much. The TTX Tech ones were a little shorter, but they do respond very well, and they do have the same pressing feel as the original Nintendo ones. The B and A buttons, while they work very well, are very, very annoying. Listen to this. That was annoying as hell to me. They do stand up a little bit better, so they are easier to get at, but if you're really hammering on that B button, it does get to be annoying at times. The D-pad was my major big problem. The D-pad does respond nicely, and when you press a button, it doesn't press the other ones, but with the down arrow, you had to press it at just the right angle, otherwise it didn't press at all. That was a big downside to me. Granted, once you had the muscle memory to remember where it pressed very nicely and it worked very well. You just got to find that sweet spot. The back of the controller, like the TTX Tech, has the 6 Phillips screw heads. It's fairly clean and shiny and polished, except for the cute quality control pass sticker there, which I'm actually glad this has. That means somebody actually took the time to look at this. The little box here is totally different than on the TTX Tech version. On the TTX Tech version, this box was much more prominent. It stuck out like a sore thumb, and you could actually end up wearing a little bit on your finger holding it. It was a little bit annoying. The cable. And the other thing about this is the cable is short. It's only 4 or 5 feet long, and when you're playing something like Nintendo, you don't want something that short. My last little nitpick about this is that this cable end here. This end here was so annoying, and it feels so cheap. I thought it was going to break the first couple times I used it, because when you put it in the port, it stuck in there and you had to sit there and try to force the damn thing out of there. That was scary. But after using this a few times, I think a little bit of the plastic may have worn off or something, and it slides in and out of the port just fine. Now in comparison, I have a Nintendo controller right here, and I'll tell you, there is very little distinction between the two, except for that the plastic isn't that shiny plastic. It's more of a matte finish right here, instead of it being a smooth surface which tries to just replicate the look. This is actually that matte textured surface, nicely painted, and it's kind of more appealing. You don't get that little glare off of it. The D-pad, just like on most of them, in mine is a little loose due to long use, and that just happens to a lot of older controllers. But if you get it put back in the right position, it works perfectly fine. The start and select buttons are rubber, as you come to expect. They feel nice. The B and A buttons are actually kind of short compared to this, and it threw me off once I switched back to this. Of course, the cable is a good 8-foot cable, and the plug is a more polished plastic and fits a lot better in the console. And now for the conclusion. Should you get the Tomee NES controller? Well, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. The original NES controllers can be expensive on eBay or any other place that sells older retro stuff. The Nintendo controller can run anywhere between $15 to $25. If you get a pair, it can run anywhere from $18 to $30. The Tomee NES controller is only $8. That's all I paid for this, and it works fairly well. Would I suggest it over this? Well, it depends on your situation. If you've got a clone console or a original Nintendo and you don't want to have to try to dig and find one of these as a replacement, yeah, it's a good controller. It does do its job, and it looks snazzy doing it. And there are a few niggly things. Colors are a little different, but all in all, I'd say it's a good replacement. It works, and I'd go for it. Please put any comments you have down in the comment section down below. Subscribe down there, and we'll see you next time with our next review. This is SmerrillS signing off. Have a good one.